And welcome back to another episode of 305 Takes. Me and Angel are back with you guys, recapping everything we saw in week 10 of the NFL season. And even with the amount of teams that we had on buys, it was four teams: the Eagles, Chiefs, Rams, and Dolphins. And, all teams that we pretty much like seeing and usually have some entertaining games weren't playing this week. But Angel, I think we had a great week of NFL football in this week 10 slate. We had a crazy Ravens Browns game. We had CJ Stroud trying to win the NFL's MVP award as a rookie, going into
CJ
there.
Stroud.
Jacksonville just answering all the questions that we had going into this game that we asked on the pod earlier last week when we were previewing that game. The return of Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I mean it was his return as his first game back, but he was very solid. You also had the Seahawks win in walk-off fashion. And then, bro, the Lions Chargers game, that was also crazy too. I mean, we
Lions
talked about
Chargers
that
was
game.
so much fun.
And the crazy part, I don't know, did you see the part on Instagram when I posted the post of the Chargers clip? And one guy just
Yeah.
says, he goes, I'm a Chargers fan. But he's saying ain't wrong.
Yeah. It's just that was a really fun game. And even in that game, like you had uh you had Dan Campbell with the decision to make with like a minute and 40 seconds left. It was 4th and 2. And the Lions looked absolutely dominant in that game. I don't understand how it came down just to a field goal, but that defense is the only thing that gives me a little bit of questions as we move forward. And, we're
Yeah.
really looking at some of these contenders because, I mean, Keenan Allen, we're going to talk about it later when we talk about fantasy too. But if you went up against Keenan Allen like I did, it was just like, can this guy just chill? I mean, he had over 110 yards and I think 8 catches with a touchdown at halftime. I think he had 114 and
Yeah.
8 catches at halftime.
Yeah, he finished the game with 11 catches for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And the thing was, is that he went to the
He got
Blue
hurt.
medical tent twice. So I was like, okay, like I hope he's not seriously injured, but at least he'll chill for nope, psych. I'm back out here catching another touchdown. It's like, oh my God. And then the Chargers
Bro,
again
can you stop?
in classic Charger fashion had like 6 plays inside the 2 yard line. I was like, what is going on in
Bro,
this football game?
that was insane. I was like, no, I said in my mind, you don't deserve to score. If you need this many plays to be inside the five to score, you don't deserve to. That's just me.
All right, so let's get started with this episode. And I think the first game we should talk about is the Cleveland Browns going to the Baltimore Ravens and somehow coming out with a victory, scoring 16 of their 33 points in the fourth quarter, and a surprisingly shocking comeback led by Deshaun Watson, who was money in the in the second half after going 6 of 20 for 79 yards in the first half, including the second play of the game being picked off for a pick six. And at that point, when I saw the Kyle Hamilton jump up in the air, bat the ball, catch it, and return it for an interception, I was like, oh, the Browns might be in for a long day. But it just goes back to the point we were talking about a couple weeks ago where whoever the team of the week is, whoever we think is like, oh, like
They're
they're the new
going
best
down.
team. They're not performing well the next week. And I, there's two ways to look at this. Do you put more? Is it a better win for Cleveland or is it worse loss for Baltimore?
I'm going to say a better win for Cleveland just because Baltimore's had a lot of these losses over the past 2 seasons. They've had a lot of losses where they were up in the fourth quarter and they just blew it. You had the Dolphins game last year that they lost. You had the Giants game last year that they lost. I believe when they played Pittsburgh, also they lost that game. And this year now you have Cleveland. So it's not really surprising to see Baltimore lose in this fashion. So I'm going to give a lot more credit to the Browns because in the fourth quarter, they were on point. They did everything that they needed to do to win the game, and all the things went their way, especially when Lamar threw that pass and the defensive lineman jumped up and the ball's in the air and it magically falls in Greg Newsome's hands. And he takes it for a pick six for a 1 point game to tie it, which was like, once I saw that play, I was like, oh my gosh, Cleveland might actually do this. Unless Baltimore just milks the clock for the game-winning field goal that Tucker will send him off into the sunset, and boom. But that just didn't happen. So I do want to give a lot of credit to the Browns, and especially like you said with Deshaun playing absolutely money in the second half after leaving early in the first half to go get his ankle taped up. So a lot of credit to Deshaun. I overall just a great win for Cleveland. This is a win that's going to help them a lot because after yesterday, seeing the Bengals lose, this does keep them ahead of them in the division. So, and there's a lot of winnable games for Cleveland, especially in their remainder of their schedule against divisional opponents. So, I feel like this was an amazing win for Cleveland.
And I mean, the AFC North and specifically this Cleveland team as well is just fascinating. Is just fascinating to me. I mean, the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I don't think either one of us think is that good, like they're a decent football team that wins some games, is just a half game away from being in the lead in their own division is insane to me. And then I don't even know what to make of this Browns team because like we all were really high on the defense after the first 5 weeks, and then they gave up 35 points to the Indianapolis Colts. And then this game, they come out and the Ravens are able to move the ball up and down. Keaton Mitchell was coming back, having another huge game for Baltimore. Odell Beckham is having flashbacks and catching slants and taking it to the house. And it's like, all right, is Cleveland's defense any good? Like we're like they just on a hot streak, but then Greg Newsome grabs the interception in the fourth quarter, returns that for an interception on the day. They forced Lamar into 2 interceptions, and he only had 3 going into the game. So and the 3 sacks as well. And when you look at it on the flip side for Baltimore, we kind of have to wonder, like, all right, maybe they just got off to a hot start, and like, all right, we were over complimentary because of all the injuries we knew they had, but can you really rely on Kyle Van Noy and Jadeveon Clowney to win consistently, especially when you're considering how dominant Myles Garrett is on the other side? And that's a guy that, all right, when there's a big play, like, all right, we can count on Myles Garrett's going to make that play. But I honestly have to say, I agree with you. I think this was a really, really impressive win for Cleveland. And, you know, I'm going to leave him alone because Deshaun finally showed why they gave him that contract. I know it's only one game, but
you questioned it.
Yeah, and this is exactly what you need to do if you're a franchise quarterback. And all right, yeah, the game didn't start off great. He threw a pick 6, but in the second half, what was he, 13 of 13 in the second half, I believe?
Yeah, I think he was either like 13 or 14 or 13 or 13, one of the two.
Yeah, I don't think he had an incompletion, and then he had the scramble to set him up into field goal range. So I guess I have to take the L on the Deshaun takes for now and sit that one out because
I mean, you weren't wrong because we talked about his play was just not good
at all leading up to this game. And then that's what, if you would have asked me, is there any way Cleveland wins after that pick 6 on the second play, I would have said there's absolutely no shot. Like this, especially with this quarterback and the way. No, there's no way.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I had a bet where I was like saying, all right, Ravens are winning money line, like a part of my 7 legs on that one. And once I saw the pick 6 at the beginning, I was like, yeah, this game is a lock. Yeah. I'm good. And then I just see it dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. I was like, wait, excuse me? Like, how is this?
What is going on?
How is this separation 1 point?
What is going on?
Like,
yeah, it was a crazy football game. And honestly, like, and because of this, it leads us to like an interesting conversation about who might win MVP this year, because I don't think there really is a clear favorite.
There's
it really looks like Lamar might be able to, especially if Baltimore kept getting out to these commanding leads and winning comfortably. Okay, you could see that. Patrick Mahomes is always going to be up there
for a while.
Yeah, Mahomes is always going to be up there, but I don't think he's had even a better season than last year. Hurts, same thing. I think he was still better last year than he was this year, and I don't think that Eagles team is as good as it was last year. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. That's why when we talk about it later, when we talk about that Houston-Cincinnati game, I mean, if CJ Stroud can keep this up, we might be on to something unprecedented.
Yeah. Yeah, a rookie winning NFL MVP, that would be something. That's one of those stats you would hear. It's like, who is the only NFL player to win offensive rookie of the year, NFL MVP, which will be like, wait, and people were like, wait, there's someone who did both, and it's like, yep, his name could
But
be
and
CJ
this
Stroud.
this also could be the first year that we get, or the first year in a long time that we get a non-quarterback. If one of these guys could actually break out, if Tyreek actually goes for 2,000,
Or AJ Brown.
we and I think AJ Brown's only like 60 yards behind Tyreek Hill on the season,
Yeah.
so like it's not that crazy. It's
Also
not that crazy.
this has always been like a hot take from me. I always feel like a defensive player should be in the consideration for MVP. I thought when TJ Watt tied the sack record, I thought he should have had every right to be in the conversation for MVP. I've made the case for Aaron Donald a lot of times to actually be in the MVP conversation. But who knows? Maybe even this year. I mean, if Myles Garrett like somehow wills the Cleveland Browns into the playoffs by himself, he could be in it.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I
there's
mean,
a
if he
lot of
has it,
guys.
too bad it happened already, but like that play where he jumped over the line on the kickoff and then blocked the kick. I mean, that's literally like an MVP plan moment. Like that's when you're like, all right, this guy is crazy. Give him the MVP. If that
Yeah.
happened like the last week of the season, like right before voting, I
Oh,
could see that definitely influencing voters.
yeah. So I mean that's always been my hot take. I would like to see a defensive player win MVP because the only one we had was Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, Aaron Donald would have been a good case, especially like when they were going to the Super Bowl with Goff as their quarterback and stuff like that. Yeah, that would have been a good case to make. But let's move on to our second game. And this is the aforementioned CJ Stroud going into Cincinnati and beating Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. There are a few caveats as we saw the injury report throughout the week. T. Higgins wasn't able to play in this one, and Jamar Chase ended up playing even though he was banged up going into the game. But I have to say, this Texans team is a lot of fun, and it's probably already locked up. But DeMeco Ryans is coach of the year because to go
Yeah.
from having the second and third pick, making those moves to get Anderson and CJ Stroud, and just the talent that they have on this team is very impressive. And, Cleveland had been clicking. We mentioned how good that they looked in that San Francisco game and specifically how good the defense looked. And they had no answers. Like Houston was able to move the ball up and down the field on them. And we've
Yeah.
seen specifically with the Cincinnati team before where they might have a bad half, but then they go into the second half and they make the necessary adjustments. Most famously, the Chiefs game where they just decided to drop 8 and rush 3, and that gave the Chiefs offense a lot of problems. But they had no answer for CJ Stroud yesterday, and it's very impressive what he's doing. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. So I mean, Houston took the cake for me because I was like, man, a rookie came in here, a rookie head coach, a lot of guys on teams where we're kind of like out on Noah Brown. The Cowboys were out on him, Dalton Schultz. There's a reason why the Cowboys didn't re-sign him. Robert Woods, he's been on a bunch of teams now. And then you bring in CJ Stroud, you have Tank Dell, you have Devin Singletary, who was not re-signed by Buffalo. A lot of guys where people were out on. And they were also able to win this without their best receiver, statistically, Nico Collins, which I think makes this more impressive. Because, I mean, this is a team that's young and they're not supposed to be winning this much. They're really not. I mean, right now they're 5-4, and there's a good chance they can make the playoffs. A very good chance they can make it. And if they were to make it, I could see them being a very tough out for a bunch of teams because they can move the ball easily up and down the field. Like you said, CJ Stroud has been money on almost all the throws. I mean, he's throwing it up and down the field to Tank Dell, Schultz, Nico Collins, Noah Brown. See, and they get Singletary involved. And this is also without Damian Pierce, their lead back. So I'm very impressed with this team and the defense for not having that many stars on it, let alone Pro Bowlers. I'm very impressed with this Houston Texans team.
Yeah, and I mean 356 yards and just one touchdown. But then, like you said, Devin Singletary, who was a cast off in Buffalo, 150 yards and a touchdown. Like they got performances all over. Noah Brown looks unbelievable. It's like kind of crazy how good that they look. And Tank Dell, like you said, it's a really fun team. And I just the way it looks like it's shaking out, especially with our questions that we had about Jacksonville going into that San Francisco game, and then they laid an absolute dud. I could
Who
see it
knows if they
coming
steal the
down to
South?
that's what I'm saying. I could see it coming down to the last week where it's like, all right, Jacksonville just needs to win. They have an 80% chance of winning the AFC South. And it's like, all right, Houston needs to win, needs this to happen, and Jacksonville lost. Something's gonna happen where there's gonna be a scenario where they're still alive. But after, I mean, I know I asked a question last week, like, is how does CJ Stroud look if he's on the Panthers? But the way that these defenses haven't had an answer for him, and it could be still a case of they just don't have enough tape, and okay, they're doing different things, each week, but he's really
He
becoming a
looks
problem.
great.
He's really becoming a problem in this league, and it's like, damn, like how do we start? Like, this is a guy we're gonna have to start circling on the game plan, and like when he comes to your town, like, okay, we're gonna have to play perfect on defense, which is
Yeah.
crazy to say for a rookie, because we've had other good quarterbacks come in as rookies. Herbert set the single season passing record for a rookie, but there was still moments where he was still learning on the fly, and you weren't
Yep.
totally bought into the offense. We still had to
We had
develop the
Baker
chemistry.
Mayfield.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield came in and set it on fire a little bit, but it's not like this. It's not like this. Yeah, they
Yeah.
won games and they
He's
were impressive while doing
CJ
it,
has
but
been so consistent. That's the thing.
and he's the reason they're winning. Like, he's the reason. It's not, oh, okay, our defense held them, or we got to pick six and a key. No, our offense is moving the ball up and down the field on anybody.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing what the Texans are doing right now. And bro, if they were to win the AFC South and make the playoffs over Jacksonville, who was coming in as the overwhelming favorites to win the South and actually be a contender to make a deep run in the playoffs, that will say a lot.
And this is how we thought Jacksonville was probably going, or a real optimistic scenario for Jacksonville going into the season was they might look like this Houston offense, where they have ETN second year fully healthy. Trevor Lawrence, we're expecting to jump from him. They made a move to get Calvin Ridley for Lawrence. We saw how Evan Ingram looked last year with Lawrence. We saw how Kirk looked last year with Lawrence, and we were expecting, okay, now they have all these guys that are veterans. They played in the system. Let's see that leap. But it's happened in what, 5 games in Houston, and it didn't take a full season and an off season. It's here now, and it's really, really fun to watch. And I still am wondering if, like, okay, if we get more and more tape and they start doing some of the same things on offense, like, is there a way to slow it down? But since,
Probably,
I
I mean,
mean,
it's eventually
and
going
his
to take time.
and his worst performance was against the Ravens in week 1. And he still played all right as a rookie going into that game. And we know Baltimore secondary to be good.
Yeah, no, and that's was also the crazy part. How you said like his worst game was against Baltimore. That was week 1. Usually you expect rookie quarterbacks to be like pretty like bad their first year because obviously it's a different league. This isn't college anymore. You're at a much faster pace. Everyone on the field is really good, and the field you're not going to have as many playmakers as you did in college, which is happy with CJ, but somehow it's been the opposite in terms of like the success rate for almost all the quarterbacks except him. The only other quarterback that's had this much success, like winning his first year, was Dak. That was because Dak just had a great team around him. But I mean, credit to CJ Stroud, man. And like you said, I mean, right now I don't see how he's not in the MVP conversation because at the beginning of the year, it was a lot of Tua we talked about. Then it was a little bit of Patrick Mahomes, then some Lamar and Jalen. But now CJ Stroud is right in that mix to win this award.
Yeah. Yeah. That's when you're like, okay, we have something serious going on our hands. And I can't even remember a rookie ever even being in the conversation for any serious conversation that you're having about the MVP. Like, I
Yeah,
can't
I
even
mean, I
remember.
thought Zeke was gonna make a really strong case, but that was about it. That was the last time I thought any rookie was making a case for MVP.
It's crazy. I mean, you can say Jefferson just because he was going crazy, but we know how it is, like, with non-quarterbacks winning that award. So it's going to be incredibly fun to watch them for the rest of the season, and their schedule kind of shakes out really well because I think They have the Cardinals next week, and the Cardinals looked better with Kyler back at quarterback, but especially on defense, I think that's another defense that they can take advantage of. And then they go Cardinals at home, Jaguars at home, Broncos at home. Then they go Jets, Titans, Browns, Titans, Colts. So they still have to play the rest of their division. They play a couple of those teams twice, and
There's a lot of winnable games.
I mean, you can tell me that they only lose 2 games, the Browns and the Jaguars in that stretch, and even if they
Yeah.
beat the Jaguars, I wouldn't be stunned by it.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be shocked. Who knows? Maybe their only second loss comes in the last week of the season because they clinched a playoff spot. So they just
That
rest their
would be
starters.
crazy. It would be one of the craziest turnarounds that we've seen, especially with a rookie head coach, rookie quarterback drafting that high in the draft. Like
Second overall pick to playoff bound.
that would be insane. That would be insane. So shout out CJ Stroud and this fun Houston Texans team that we're definitely going to be tuned into for the rest of the season, because it's just a lot of fun to watch this team. And then let's move on to the late games, because the Lions went to Los Angeles and played the Chargers, and it was a really fun game as far as offensive football, because not a lot of defense was being played in this one. And somehow it ended up with a final score of 41-38, even though from the opening drive to the last drive, the Detroit Lions were owning the football field. They were able to do whatever they want. They got David Montgomery back. He ripped off a long touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs was being utilized in the passing game and in the running game. They didn't even have to rely on LaPorta that much in this game, which I thought was impressive too, because especially after coming off the bye and with them not making a move to get maybe another receiver in the trade and before the trade deadline passed, Amon-Ra went off in this one. I thought they would rely on LaPorta a little bit more as we get into this home stretch, but to not even have to use him that much and still be able to basically dominate this game. When you look at the stats, they had over 500 yards of total offense. And
That's insane.
And the Chargers, I mean, they're such a funky team, because I'm not even going to say they played bad on offense. Like they really didn't necessarily play bad on offense, but they got dominated. Like there's no other way for me to say it. They gave up 116 yards to Montgomery on the ground. They gave up 177 yards to Jahmyr Gibbs on the ground. Jared Goff went 22 of 33 for 333 yards and 2 touchdowns. He wasn't sacked, had a quarterback rating of 122.4. I mean, I don't know what to say of this Chargers team anymore. Like they're the most confusing franchise I've ever seen.
I think it was like the perfect indictment as to what we said last week on the pod. We were like, it's not that we don't like the Chargers. We just don't trust them because they either play great for 3 quarters and mess it up in the 4th quarter, or they're just behind the 8 ball so much they can't win the game. And it was a perfect, like both of them played. They fell behind the 8 ball so early in the game with the Lions. Then they started playing great all the way until their last touchdown when they tied the game. And then the Lions just ran and milked the clock all the way to get that walk-off like field goal. So much credit to the Lions, like you said, because I really love how they implemented Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Both of them getting a lot of touches in the game, because that really helps their offense out so much. And to now rely on the LaPorta, like you said, which I think is big for them. But for the Chargers' sake, I mean, I think it's time you got to get rid of Brandon Staley. I think the writing's on the wall, because this guy, like you said a bunch of times, he's supposed to be this defensive guru. You have Joey Bosa, you have Khalil Mack, you have Derwin James, you have all these names on defense, and you can't stop anyone. Like at some point, like 2 + 2 is not equaling 4. Like there's something that's wrong here, and I think it might just come down to where like Brandon Staley's let go, because bro, the Chargers, they need to stop someone on defense. Like the offense can't go out and score 45 points every week.
It's a lot to ask for. It's a lot to ask for. And I mean, I don't even know how you talk about Herbert at this point too, because it's either his defense has given up 6,000 yards, and so he's just forced to throw the ball every play. And then he looked good yesterday. Like, I don't think he played bad or had any, bad decisions, but he wasn't great. But he was essentially the other quarterback that was playing Jared Goff. Like, they have really good games. Like, you look at Jared Goff's game and you're like, this is a really good game, even when considering it's Jared Goff. And then you look at Herbert, you're like, all right, you played at the same level as Jared Goff, but
He didn't do
it,
anything to lose the game. That's the thing.
he didn't do anything to lose the game. And then, like, I love Austin Eckler, but he's a small running back. And that's why they struggle at the goal line. And that's why they struggle in these fourth and shorts, because they need somebody that's bigger and can honestly just fall forward for a yard. And their biggest threat to run that can actually have that happen is Herbert. So it's like they're always stuck in between. Do we do
Or Josh
quarterback?
Kelly.
Yeah, do we do a quarterback sneak? And then you saw at the goal line, Herbert gets bent backwards a little bit. They say on the broadcast that he was spitting blood out of his mouth, had to go into the medical tent. I was like, what is going on with this team? Like, they have no semblance. And you look at Detroit and it's the complete opposite. They have 100% faith in just how tough they're going to be as a football team. They that 4th and 2 late in the game. They went for it a couple of times on 4th down in the end of the first half to try to put points on the board. Like, they just over and over again, they have faith that their offense is going to be able to execute these small things. And, it's just, you don't see that with the Chargers, even with the talent that they have. And I also think a big blow that we don't talk about enough is them having lost Mike Williams.
Yeah, no, I mean, we mentioned it a little bit, but we just figured, all right, the Chargers have a bunch of talent. Like, you should be able to do something because they've had a lot of good players there. And it's coming to a point now where I think the Chargers just need a reset because I do like Kellen Moore. I do like how this offense looks under Kellen Moore. I would like you said, I would get a bigger back just for those short yardage. I understand Austin Eckler is really strong, but you just need a guy who has length so that way he could just stretch the football over the first down before his knee falls. So that way at least you get the first down. Even if that's their job, that's it. Kind of like how last year the Cowboys did with Zeke. Zeke was there only for short yardage, and then Tony Pollard would do everything else. If they implement that strategy, I feel like they would be perfectly fine. But I mean, we'll have to see. But I do also want to give a lot of credit to Detroit because, like you said, they were just a tougher team. They wanted it more at the end of the day, and they got it. And at this point now, every time it's 4th down, I'm expecting them to go for it. I'm not expecting a punt because, I would tell anyone, the best jobs in sports is backup quarterback and being punter for the Detroit Lions. Because at this point, you're never going to punt as long as Dan Campbell is the coach.
And
you will never
as long
have
as
to do
it's
anything.
4th and 2 and less, you're good. You can absolutely just chill, wear a backwards hat, you'll be fine.
Yeah, like, you're not going to do anything. You'll be there sitting on the bench, be like, well, okay, guys. So what are we leaving?
Yeah, what do I need to do? Anybody need me? Anybody need me?
Yeah, like they don't have to do anything. So I would just be like, all right. I mean, so but it was a very, very entertaining game, and I loved every second of it, and especially for fantasy purposes, because in my other league that I'm not in with Miles, I had Keenan Allen, and he saved me. Like,
I had
so
Keenan
much,
Allen
so
in
much.
the other league that we're not a part of, and
Yeah.
I was texting all day, can Keenan Allen chill? Can Keenan Allen just
Yeah,
chill? And I had, even worse, I had the stack of Herbert against Allen.
Well, at least the
Oh,
guy I went
Herbert
against,
and Allen.
yeah, I had stacked Dak and Allen, so it was like I was just kidding. 2 guys combined for 70 points. I was not meant to be leading in fantasy this week for that league. I was not meant to, because essentially 2 players gave me a donut. The Saints defense, a donut. Mike Thomas, he left the game early,
Oh my God.
leaving me 1.9.
It's over for him. Slant Boy, it's officially over, bro.
So
it should have been
that
over
was
after
it.
it should have been over after he tried to
Drew
follow
Brees
that guy up.
retired.
No, it should have been over for him after he tried to follow that guy into the locker room after that Panthers game. But
Oh my gosh.
it's just a lot's going on there. A lot is going on there.
Yeah. But I will say I am very happy to be winning right now. So I am definitely looking very close to this Buffalo Bills Broncos game for that. But that's a different topic for a different day, as we'll talk more about it on a later week episode. But yeah, I'm excited, bro. And for the one we're part of, bro, my matchup, I could be honest, bro. It was the toilet bowl this week. My matchup was the toilet bowl.
Oh,
We
dude, it's not even bad. It's just when you see your points just going down and down and down, you don't even look at how much your percentages of winning anymore. It's just like your projected total is now 20 points less than what we thought. And then once you don't even when you're projected to hit like 100.9, you're like, oh, it's one of these weeks. It's one of these weeks. I'll be lucky to crack 100. Okay. I see how my team is
Yeah,
doing me today.
I mean, my matchup's been pretty bad, but guys, Miles had one of the best matchups of the year. Him and Moises, our good friend of the show, they went crazy.
Yeah, oh my God, bro. And it wasn't even fun. It wasn't even fun. Like I couldn't even say it was fun.
Bro, the score of that is insane. I mean, your score
And
is 150 to like 120 something.
I think it's 152. Yeah, like 150 to 130. It ended up finishing, I
Oh,
believe.
okay.
And I mean,
Oh,
because Hawkinson was absolutely killing me in the 1 o'clock game. So by the time the 4 o'clock games happened, I think it was 60-40 percentage going to Moy. Uh, after I was up when we talked about it going into this weekend, I was up what was I up? I was projected to win by 23 points. So I was like, oh, I don't even have to check that matchup every too often. And then I see Hawkinson just getting catch after catch and then getting flipped on his head 6 different times, but still coming in and getting the next catch. I was like, what is going on? What is going on? What am I missing?
what hurt Moy was having the Chargers defense. The Chargers defense
Yeah,
gave him -9.
yeah, that's
That's
what absolutely
insane.
saved me. That's absolutely what
Oh,
saved me.
but I can't be mad, bro. This was a great week of football. I thought it was going to be such a bad week looking at these matchups, but no, I can't complain. This was a great week of football.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and yeah, like you said, I thought it was, we had potential for a bad week, especially when, you consider what that Thursday night football game was with the Bears and Panthers, just another example of why we probably shouldn't play football on Thursday. And then you see that the Chiefs and Dolphins are out after playing in Germany, followed by the Eagles being out. And it's like, okay, we might have some stinkers. And then you look at the 4 o'clock slate, it's, Danny DeVito versus the Dallas Cowboys, and then you have Falcons Cardinals, which is about as random as it gets. Uh, Buccaneers Titans, which ended up being a bad game, but the rest of them carried their weight. The Ravens game, which looked like it could have gotten ugly early, um, ended up being coming down to the wire at the end as well. So it was a really fun week 10 of the NFL season, and I still really can't tell you who the best team is.
No,
I
I
guess it's
can't.
the 49ers. Like I guess if they're healthy, it's the 49ers. I guess that's just the answer,
Yeah,
but it depends on who's exactly healthy and playing.
I think that's also the beauty of it for this season, outside of like, because every team has a flaw. Every team
Oh,
has a
every
flaw.
team. Yeah.
So we don't really have a true like saying these are our favorites last year, like with the Chiefs and the Eagles. So now it's really
Yeah,
wide
no
open.
team has
So now
jumped
the
out like
Super
that.
Bowl matchup can be any matchup. I think that's the beauty of this season.
It really could be. And especially when you consider like the NFC, like, all right, we think maybe three teams that have a legit chance. Three and a half if you count the Cowboys. I wouldn't really count the Cowboys. And depending on how high you are on the Lions, I think they have, enough to be one of the final four teams. I don't know if their defense can necessarily get them all the way there. And we'll see if they can hold on to home field advantage throughout the rest of the season. Um, throughout the rest of the season, especially because they have Jared Goff, so getting him indoors at Ford Field will be crucial for them if they want to extend that far. But the AFC, I mean, these teams are just going to cannibalize themselves like we're already
Yeah,
seeing, and
you
that's
have the
why
Ravens,
the
Chiefs,
just the AFC
Bengals.
North alone, you have Ravens, Bengals, Browns, who I think realistically could be one of the final four teams, could make it to the AFC Championship. That's
Don't
not
count
even
out the
mentioning the
Steelers, bro.
Steelers, bro. The zombie Steelers somehow still alive, and not even somehow still alive, like are in good position for the playoffs. The Bills is anybody's guess at this point. Is anybody's guess. The Dolphins, after the hot start, I still think, look good for the playoffs. I don't know if you consider them still Super Bowl contenders. And then that's not mentioning the Chiefs. That's not mentioning the Jaguars, who, Jaguars are still in the conversation,
Uh,
I guess. Yeah.
yeah.
So I think
And then
it'll
we
be
might have to
really
count the
fun as we go down the
Texans.
stretch. I don't know if I can get there yet. I don't know if I can get
Oh,
there
well,
yet.
just as playoff contention, like they're in the hunt.
They definitely are in the hunt. That's no debating that.
So I mean, man, I think that's what's great about it. But I'm definitely excited even for this week's slate of matchups because Thursday night we actually have a solid game matchup. I mean, the
But the only
Bengals,
thing that sucks
Ravens.
this about this week coming up is that the best two matchups are Thursday and Monday night.
That's the thing.
That's the only thing. So it's like, all right, we finally got a good Thursday night game, but then the Sunday games, Dolphins Raiders.
Well, we don't know,
I want to
bro.
see if Antonio Pierce can keep still winning though, because
I'm rooting for Antonio Pierce. I'm rooting for him,
I
man.
was I was I mean, I know it's the Jets, but I was still surprised that they were able to pull out that game last night. I mean, it looked like no
Yeah.
touchdowns were going to be able to be scored in that game, and
Oh,
the Raiders' offense kind of woke up in the second half. They were able to move the ball, and I don't know. I get that they called it a fumble on the field, but I don't know how that Josh Jacobs thing was ruled a fumble. Like, I mean, I guess he fumbled. I couldn't really see it. The ball came out. No
I
denying that.
yeah. Yeah, I'm on the same boat with you. I was like, okay, I thought it was more of an incomplete than a fumble, but if you want to call it a fumble, go ahead. I mean, I'm not a referee. I don't know the rules as well, so I can't say too much. But that's why the people in New York in those challenge centers, they get paid the big bucks and we stay at home and they explain the rules to us eventually. So I'm
Yeah,
just waiting for that.
yeah. So we'll see how it goes the rest of the season, but it's definitely been fun. It's definitely been fun and entertaining, especially uh the thing is that we got to stop having these terrible quarterback matchups. Like if I ever get another Bryce Young, Tyler Badgett quarterback matchup, or Mac Jones, Gardner Minshew,
Tommy DeVito versus
Tom,
like any of those
I
quarterbacks.
I mean, at least it was Dak on the other side. So you're like, all right, I know this isn't going to be a stupid football game, but we just barely missed out on Clayton Tune versus Taylor Heineke, or Clayton Tune versus
Desmond Ritter.
Desmond Ritter. Thank you. And we ended up with Josh Dobbs versus Jameis.
Bro, Joshua Dobbs, you got, I mean, bro, you were
He's fun.
you're playing
He's
awesome.
fun.
Yeah, bro. And the crazy play of that game, I was talking to my dad. I was like, this is typical Jameis Winston fashion. He's all the way on the other side of the field and he just zips one on a line to the other side of the field and
On
it's a
fourth down,
touchdown.
it's a throw you should never make, but somehow ended up as a touchdown.
That was what I was like, Dad, this is typical Jameis Winston
Yeah,
fashion. No other quarterback is willing to make
is
this risk
thinking about
except
throwing
Jameis.
that. No one else is even, that's not even a consideration of, oh yeah, this is what I should do. Like
Yo, so
no one else is
credit
even
to some of these
considering throwing
quarterbacks
that
because
ball.
they will put on a show for us. They
Well,
will put
that's
on a show.
honestly what you should try to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you should try to do. I mean, it is entertainment after the end of the day. I know like this is your profession, you're trying to keep the job, but still like it's we're still looking to be entertained.
Yeah.
Uh so that'll be another episode of 305 Takes. Me and Angel recapped week number 10 for you guys. As always, thank you for listening. We'll be back later in the week to look forward to the matchups that we have in week 11 coming up. And Angel, you have anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Look out for the next episode, guys. It's definitely gonna be fun. We're gonna try to have on a guest and we'll see you then.
Peace. Perfect.